segment is Louisiana poor lack legal defense. Thank the former governor, good old Bobby Jindal, for a lot of this mess, particularly with his reduction of taxes on the rich, taking away basic security blankets from the poor, and now with people who can't afford their own attorneys, they got to basically sit in jail until the state, which is required to provide them with a legal defense, can come up with an attorney for them. This is a case of both racism and classism, and you can thank the good old GOP for this one.
All right, folks, imagine being arrested, charged with a misdemeanor crime. You think you appear in court with a state-appointed defense lawyer, well, the judge gives you a future court date, and you go home. In Louisiana, folks are sitting in jail and waiting for a public defender for days, weeks at a time, because there's a severe shortage of lawyers to represent those who can't afford their own. According to a story in the New York Times, public defenders in Louisiana represent more than 8 out of 10 criminal defendants. As a result, poor defendants are being put on wait lists with sometimes more than 2,300 names. What in the world is going on in Louisiana, and what can actually be done? Joining us right now to talk about this is Don Cravens Jr., Senior Vice President for Policy and Executive Director of the Washington Bureau for the National Urban League, also a former state official there in Louisiana. Of course, Steel Drum Night, Ralph Chitums, Angela Peoples, Dr. Wimberly on. So let's talk about, what's happening in Louisiana? I mean, is this budget, or lawyers simply saying, look, I'd rather represent folks in private cases?
Roland, I think what you're seeing in Louisiana is three factors that are creating the worst case scenario. First of all, you've got a state that's poor. It's the second poorest state in the nation. Then you've got a state that has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and I said that correctly, not just in the country, the highest incarceration rate in the world. And then when you add 8 years of Bobby Jindal, the former governor of Louisiana, who literally gave away the farm in Louisiana, and then the farm in Leonville, Louisiana, which you have some roots there, where we gave tax breaks to the wealthy, we gave subsidies to big businesses, and that was fine when the economy was good in Louisiana, but once the economy turned, oil prices, which is good for the rest of the country when they go down, it's not good for Louisiana. What you've seen is those three things have hit a juncture, and they've created the worst case scenario. And so when the state began to cut budgets, $900 million was cut already this year. An additional $900 million has to be cut for next year's fiscal budget. What happens is you start cutting budgets, and so you've cut higher education, you've cut health care, and now you're seeing cuts to the indigent defender system as well. And so people they don't have lawyers guaranteed by both the state constitution as well as the United States Constitution.
You spent time in the legislature there. What are folks there doing? I mean, do they care?
Absolutely, but this goes back to something I've heard you talk about, and I'm still picking my jaw off the floor of the too broke to vote. Here's a situation where people are too broke not to vote. Here's a situation where people need to care. They're finding out that maybe I should have cared about this because now I'm incarcerated, maybe a misdemeanor offense. Could be innocent, right? In America, we're innocent until proven guilty, and yet people have to sit in these local jails and wait until a lawyer can be appointed. The article that you referenced, it really hit home for me because it was in the 15th Judicial District Court, which is Southwest Louisiana, Lafayette Parish, Vermilion Parish. One public defender for the entire judicial district. That's 3 parishes. One public defender for the entire. So what you're seeing in Louisiana.
And for folks who are watching, a parish is like a county.
Correct.
In another particular state.
Yes, so for 3 counties, one public defender. She has hundreds of cases. And so when someone gets arrested and the state has to provide counsel for that defendant because that defendant can't afford a lawyer, she has to tell that defendant, sit in jail and wait until we can get you a court date. And so what you've got is you've got men and women who are sitting in jail, local jails in Louisiana, but really, Martin, Roland, this is happening all over America. There's estimates that 450,000 people nationwide are sitting in local jails waiting for a court date because their states can't provide the legal counsel they're entitled to.
Folks, this is one of those things that what is so basic and fundamental in this country, and that is the right to counsel.
I guess the question I would have is, why aren't organizations like yours and all of these other liberal organizations that always go up in arms, why haven't they filed a lawsuit claiming violation of rights?
And I think what you say, you have seen some lawsuits. So the ACLU has filed lawsuits, and you bring up a good point. You are finding that other organizations are filing lawsuits, and I think you're right. That may be the solution. We talk about voting; those things have to happen on a local level. But the key to getting this change right now, like we've seen during the civil rights movement, to really fight, because this is a civil rights argument, this is a civil rights battle. It's a constitutional, is to file those lawsuits. So I think you've seen in Orleans Parish, in New Orleans, the county that surrounds New Orleans, the ACLU there has filed the suit, because in that parish, the public defenders have said, ethically, we can't take these cases because we don't have the ability to serve all these defendants. So we refuse the cases.
But see, this should not be put in the context of if liberal organizations are against it, because if the Republican Party is talking about outreach, this is something that the Republican Party should be championing.
Oh,
and wait a minute. And also, we do have a right to a speedy trial. I think Gideon v. Wainwright does guarantee right to counsel, and we have to go back to Ronald Reagan and budget cuts. We have to go back to Ronald Reagan and doing away with block grants to states and doing away with revenue sharing in order to understand why these states are so cash strapped. It's because the national government can no longer provide them the monies that it used to provide, thanks to the great President Ronald Reagan.
But if the states handle their budgets better,
No, there's no money there. There's no money there.
The national party, whether it's Democrats or
There's no
Republicans.
money. The money is going to Syria. The money is going to allowing Boko Haram.
Well, he wasn't even just blaming on the national party. The point is, which I think is right. You said, well, let's talk about liberals, what are people that make this outcry. What about sort of right-wing activists who are also in love with the Constitution and wanting to harken back to that? This is a constitutional right, but I think that it goes deeper than just having access to representation. I happened to be arrested taking an action when I was in Cleveland late last year, and while I was in jail, there were many people that were there that had been there, not even seen a detective, not even sure what they were being charged with. And so even when folks are sitting in jail, in addition to not having representation, there's also not even investigation or being reached out to by their arresting officer. So there's a huge lack of capacity and resources across the justice system.
So Ralph, answer that. Okay, if Republicans talk about being strict constructionists, they talk about the Constitution, the Sixth Amendment guarantees you right to counsel. Why isn't Judicial Watch? Why isn't the Republican National Committee up in arms about this? Where's the Eagle Forum? Where are these conservative organizations demanding something be done that guarantees people their rights afforded in the U.S. Constitution?
Well, I can't answer where they.
No. But you asked him.
Right.
But you asked him, what are these legal groups, what are these liberal groups doing? What are the conservative groups doing?
I don't know what they're doing, but I can guarantee you I will make some phone calls today when I leave this studio to some conservative organizations and find out how come they're not interested in this issue, which is constitutional, which everyone does have to
ask him to make this a campaign issue.
Trial.
I'll give you.
Put a call on Ted Cruz.
I promise I will make those calls today.
I'll save you a little bit of time. I bet it has something to do with the ethnicity and the identity of the people who end up to be in need of a public defender.
And the response you'll get is those people are right where we want them to be.
But now here's the deal, though. We sit poor. It's a bunch of poor white folks in Louisiana.
Absolutely, Louisiana has a bunch of poor white folks. And the reason why I didn't even address Ralph on the liberal group, because the National Urban League is a nonpartisan group. We're here to help people whose rights are being denied. In the federal system, Ralph, the federal system, right here in the Capitol, right behind us, during sequestration, something that was brought on by the Republican Party, the federal indigent defense system went kaput. And so we can't get into these Republican Democrat fights on this. This is about people being granted their substantive due process granted in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. This was in the Sixth Amendment, and I hear people fight every day who are running for president about the Second Amendment. They will stand and fight and raise their arms about the Second Amendment. I'd like to see all groups stand up and fight for the Sixth Amendment as well.
And in fact, of course, look, we get the Louisiana primary that took place on March 5th, a month ago. I guarantee you, Donald Trump will bring this up. Senator Ted Cruz didn't bring this up. And then the question, that, and of course Trump wins Louisiana, Clinton wins Louisiana as well. But this is one of those issues that isn't sexy. And the bottom line is, you hear folks talk about the middle class. They'll talk about income inequality. This is income inequality. But I gotta ask you this here, Don. What if you're a judge? Why, if it's a basic misdemeanor, why put the folks in jail? So are judges now saying, wait a minute, you know what? I should have to put this person in jail. They can't get a lawyer. Are they changing stuff? Impacting it that way, saying, look, I'll simply, you can go home, and then once you can get a lawyer, then we'll call you.
Well, I think what you're seeing is this is happening for felonies. This is supposed to happen for felonies, where it's a felony offense. Where I think you're getting the misdemeanor from. Some of these felonies may actually, once they are investigated, once the person goes to trial, once the person is arraigned, we may find out, this really wasn't a felony. This is a misdemeanor. But what I think you're finding is that judges are saying for misdemeanors or for felonies, people who are being accused of felonies, I'm not going to let you run around. Judges in Louisiana are elected as well, right? So I can't let you go home, even if it was a non-violent felony. I got to put you in jail because my elections come up too every 6 years. And so what you've got is you've got people protecting, covering themselves. And yet the poor people, the working people, if you're a young man who is wrongfully convicted or charged with a crime, you put in jail, you're waiting for a lawyer, you can't afford a lawyer, you're missing work, you're not able to support your family, and so it creates this system of just a perpetual dysfunction in my home state. And so we've got to fix it. We did try to fix it in 2007. I want to say that bipartisan legislation in 2007, we created a system where we took the public defender system out of the hands of the local judges. Because before then, it was local judges deciding which lawyer represented you if you couldn't afford one.
So you had to hook up.
You had to hook up. If I wanted to help a lawyer out and give him a couple extra contracts, maybe I might say, look, I need you to defend a couple of these poor people, but I'll take care of you on the back end. Or I'm going to get a tax attorney to help you because you know what? She has some free time. Well, I don't need a tax attorney. I need a criminal lawyer. That's all right. You got a lawyer. I'm giving you a lawyer. We changed that in 2007. But in 2007, the state was doing better. And we had money to fund the system. When the money went away.
Gas prices dropped. Louisiana has to depend on petrochemical and oil.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we continue to give tax breaks. And again, when you have money, tax breaks for working people, great. Tax breaks to wealthy, big business, no money in the state. Well, you'll see that's what we're doing in Louisiana now is cutting and cutting and cutting.
All right, Don Craven Jr., we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ro.
All right, let me know how them phone calls go.
I want to know.
Seriously, I will. Coming up.
Exactly. I want to know how them phone calls go because Republicans jump up and down, especially Ted Cruz's sorry ass jumps up and down about being a strict constitutionalist. Well, hell, how come he's not jumping up and down about the violation of people's Sixth Amendment rights in order to have legal representation? You ain't gonna hear his ass say word one about that. So I damn sure want Ralph to get back to us and let us know what happens on them damn phone calls the next time he appears on this show.